Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Mondays, so you know what we do on Mondays. It's Mondays with McCool, James McCool from Pay Dirt DFS, the co-author with me on the theory of daily fantasy sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. Just a programming note, need to note if you're watching, there will be no pregame show Tuesday through Thursday this week. So no show tomorrow, no show Wednesday, no show Thursday. I'm on a little vacation, a wrestling vacation. I'm going to a couple of wrestling events. So traveling, spending time with my wife's family a little bit. So I'll be back on Friday. So if you show up on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I mean, you can't show up. There won't be a YouTube video for you to show up, but that's where it is. I'm not gone. No one canceled me or anything. You know, it just, sometimes you have to take off. So no show Tuesday through Thursday, but I still see you guys here in the YouTube chat. So feel free to give that thumbs up. Give me some thummy thumbs. I got the apple juice. I even got the apple juice. Keep the apple juice cold. Hitting those thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. So, James, I played 24 lineups yesterday, and more than half of my lineups had Josh Allen and Dak Prescott, right, and a third of my lineups had Chase Edmonds. I didn't do well.
So you had another week where you got dusted.
No, I cashed one lineup.
Hey, okay.
I cashed one. You know why? It was my single Nick Chubb one.
Well, I had my usual three lineups. I had a Ravens stack, I had a Philadelphia stack, and I had a Las Vegas stack. The Ravens stack actually did really well. It put up 158, but I did not have Nick Chubb in it. If I had Nick Chubb in it, then I would have finished like top 15 or something in the power suite. But I had Myles Gaskin and Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker finishes with one dude.
No, he didn't finish. No. James, he finished with 100 yards twice.
I know he did. Just stop playing him at that point. Like, y'all have lost. It's okay. Or
no, he got injured. No, he had basically what happened. He ended up getting to 101 yards.
Yeah.
Then he lost 2 yards.
Yeah.
And then he gained it back, had 104 yards, and then lost 5 yards on a running play that he got injured on.
That's the worst.
Questionable return, 99 yards. Yeah, I had a bunch of Booker. I didn't play Lamar. I mean, I played in my 24 lineups. I had Josh Allen, I had Dak Prescott, I had Teddy Bridgewater, the other side of the game.
Sure.
Derek Carr, and a little like maybe 3 Jacoby Brissett lineups.
Okay.
So cheap. I mean, it wasn't just the quarterback; it's the whole stack and everything. The main reason, and the guy I left out was Justin Herbert. He was like at the bottom of the list. Herbert, Allen, Cook. It's just that I wanted to use Goddard on the Eagles.
Sure.
But I didn't necessarily want to do a 2 tight end lineup with Cook and Goddard.
Yeah.
So kind of like I ended up cutting them out because I only had 24 lineups. If I had more lineups or I decided to remove a couple of lineups, I probably would have played Herbert instead. Yeah. But you play Carr, Renfro, Waller, Tony, or Carr, Renfro, Waller, Booker. Like that was fun. Then that Bridgewater, Judy, Alberto, Amari Cooper, something like that. I played a whole bunch of Cortland Sutton. It sucks when you play a whole bunch of Sutton and Judy, and Tim Patrick is going off like there's no tomorrow. I'm like, really? I got 4% Sutton, I got 8% Judy, and Tim Patrick is catching everything.
Oh, dude. No, the Lamar Jackson throwing a pass to Patrick Ricard first, and then throwing a touchdown pass to Freeman. And I have 9% on Mark Andrews. 9% on Mark Andrews in my Ravens.
You cannot complain about the Ravens stack.
I can absolutely compare
because Andrews. At halftime it was dead. And then Marquise Brown
It was not dead because Lamar Jackson is incredible for fantasy. No,
I get the Lamar Jackson thing. I get, like, he could have eight points at halftime and ends up with 35. I get that. It's the Marquise Brown stuff. Marquise Brown this week was the Michael Pittman of last week. But,
I
in,
agree.
in a different scenario, I don't understand this. I mean, I do kind of understand. Is it the simplest answer? Because last week with Pittman was a viable like cash play. Like Pittman was in my pool of like guys that could be in my cash lineup, but I chose other people instead. Marquise Brown wasn't like a cash play. He wasn't like at 6,000. He probably wasn't going to make my cash line. I didn't have a DK cash lineup. I didn't make a DK cash lineup. I just played GPPs. But in GPPs, I'm like, is the reason because we have him here in the Mega Millionaire, he's 28% owned, Wildcat 25, the Millie he's 28, play action he's 27.
Yeah,
and I'm just like,
I don't know why.
Right, but that's the point that my conjecture is that the reason why he was that owned is because Lamar Jackson was 21% owned.
And people just automatically went with Marquise Brown.
Yeah, if you're going to stack Lamar Jackson,
sure.
you stack Lamar Jackson. We had cheap tight ends, so you don't play Andrews. So I get why you played with Mark Andrews. So I mean, I'm not questioning you playing Andrews. Just that in my projected ownership for Marquise Brown was half of what he came in at.
I had him at 13%.
Right,
I never would have guessed. Yeah, I never would have guessed 28%.
But the thing is that very similar to Pittman last week. At 14%, I had him over.
I had him.
I mean, not dramatically over-owned, but still, like, I think he should have been 10% owned, and I had him at 14. But at 20, like at 28, like I've no like, it's one of those things we talk about all the time. When you review the slate, you think in terms of, had I known, what would I have done differently? And had I known Marquise Brown was going to be 28% owned, like, it wouldn't have changed my decision. I didn't play any of them. So I'm like, when the cards got flipped over at 1 o'clock and I saw 28% owned Marquise Brown, I'm like, great. Okay, that my lineups are even better now that I don't have him. But then he gets there, and I mean, he ends up getting 23 points. And on this slate, on a low scoring slate, I mean, he's the nuts, right? Yeah. I could say the same thing for Nick Chubb. Like, I had Nick Chubb at around 20-ish.
Oh, I thought Nick Chubb was a terrible play. Well, not a terrible play. I won't say that.
No, it wasn't terrible. No. I think the better way to say is that I think he was overowned.
I thought that he was fine. I thought he was okay. But like, as a running back on a road underdog against a team that like has been very, very good and has been pushing teams into a passing script, I did not think that he was that great of a play. I thought he was fine, but I thought that he was fine if he comes in at like 10 to 12% owned. If he comes in at what he came in at, what's 23% or something?
Yeah, 23% of the Mega Millionaire, 21% of the fantasy foot in the Millie. Like, I took a look at guys like Booker and Jacobs, and like Booker at like 13% and Jacobs at like 8 to 11%. Obviously they're cheaper. I thought they were at their ownership were better plays than Nick Chubb at 20 to 22%. And I think the to me, I thought Gaskin was going to be more like 18 to 20%, and he actually came in at like 11 to 14. And like, I probably would have played a little bit more. I mean, I still played Gaskin. I was more in that range.
Yeah.
I mean, when I have Chase Edmonds that gets injured on like the first play of the game in a third of my lineups, that's not going to go well with a 0.3.
Yeah.
So like, what else? A 7% Chase Edmonds, I can't, like, there's nothing I could say about that.
Yeah.
But like, I like Dalvin Cook at 12%.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think Aaron Jones was wildly overowned at 17%. I didn't expect that. I thought Alvin Jones would come in at single digit.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, I had him at like 7%.
But this is what we're doing, James. I mean, but you do the same thing. Like, when the cards flip over, see what the ownership is, and go like, how do my lineups look in comparison to what the ownership is? And that's why, like, I take a look at my stuff and I go, like, I take a look at wide receiver, and it's like, yeah, I had plenty of Amari Cooper. I was playing a lot of that game.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I have Amari Cooper. I have Jerry Jeudy was 9%, around the like. I'm fine with that, right? I think Kadarius Toney was a little bit overowned. He was more owned in the higher stakes than in the lower stakes. But I had him as a piece of my Raiders stacks, not as like a main piece.
Yeah.
I would play Higgins and Landry together to mitigate their ownership. Brandon Cooks came in way higher than I thought he would.
Dude, okay. No. Look, people in my Discord were all about Tyrod Taylor. There had to have been some site that was pushing Tyrod Taylor. I had like literally 5 different people ask me if I wanted to play Tyrod Taylor.
Well, what? I don't understand. Why would you play Tyrod Taylor when you could have? There's so many other cheaper. I mean, like I think Jacoby Brissett was better. Was 4,500 is even way cheaper.
I liked Tua a lot more than I liked Tyrod, and then Tua got because I literally had a Dolphin stack, and then Tua got ruled out. I was like, well, not touching that anymore. But I had so many people ask me if I was going to play Tyrod and if I was going to play Jordan Love, and I'm like,
well, Jordan Love, I literally didn't even consider.
No, neither did I. It was weird. It was weird. People were like clamoring for these cheap quarterbacks this week, and I'm like, there's not anything to pay up for. There's not even anything to pay up for. You can use.
You would have to you're basically doing that so you could overpay at running back and what, so you could overpay at positions for no reason.
I didn't see any reason to do it. Like, I liked Austin Eckler. He was my top projected running back, but like, I didn't feel that I needed to force him in. Like, we have Eli Mitchell, we have Josh Jacobs, Devontae Booker, Chase Edmonds, Myles Gaskin. Why would I didn't get it on weeks where, like, if you have Christian McCaffrey, who's fully healthy and not on a pitch count, and you have Travis Kelce on a team that's better than the Chiefs, and you have like Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers, like weeks like that. Okay. If you want to get a cheap quarterback so you can afford these ultra studs at really, really high prices, I get that, but I cannot understand why people were so adamant about paying down a quarterback this week. You have Lamar Jackson in a great spot. And granted, Lamar Jackson came in very, very highly owned, but there were, I'm going to go to quarterbacks really quick.
No, I could look here I have it up on my screen. Quarterback ownership across these contests. Jordan Love was the 3rd most owned quarterback. It was
what
Lamar,
is that?
then Josh Allen at 12, Jordan Love at 9, then Dak Prescott, then Joe Burrow, then Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was more owned than, like, you can't count like Mahomes and Herbert and Hurts. They're more expensive quarterbacks, but Love and Taylor were more owned. Like Brissett, where's Brissett here? Brissett was 4% owned. Tyrod was 6. Jordan Love was not almost 10% owned. But like, why couldn't you play? Look, Bridgewater was 2. Daniel Jones was 3. Derek Carr was 4. These aren't like exorbitant price quarterback. We're talking about high 5K, mid 5K, like pay $1,000 more and get a legitimate stack instead of, I don't know.
It's weird. It was a weird week in terms of ownership and in terms of people asking questions about that kind of stuff.
I don't. The problem is, like you said, let's say you play a cheap quarter. You play Jordan Love. Like, who do you play him with? Jordan Love, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. You do something like that. Okay. Then what are you doing with the rest of your life? I mean, like, it just the ceilings of, like, we didn't have many ceiling players.
No,
on the slate. I mean, it's just a matter of just overpay. Like, you're gonna basically you're ending up getting to like wide receivers like Stephon Diggs and Jamar Chase. And paying up for like Kamara or taking a shot at McCaffrey.
Yeah.
But the projections on these guys were not, I mean, yes, they have high ceilings, but in comparison to their price tags, like what ceiling does Jamar Chase have that I can't get from Cortland Sutton?
Right.
Well, yes, Jamar Chase's ceiling is 2 points, 3 points higher. Yeah, but Cortland Sutton's 5,900 and Jamar Chase is 7,600.
Right.
So it's like, am I paying up everywhere? And also, who do you pair them with? I mean, like Tyrod Taylor, Brandon Cooks. Like, dude, these guys, you almost want a double stack. And like, Nico Collins? I mean, Jordan Akins? I mean, who are you playing in these spots?
Well,
I mean, the reasoning behind my court, like Jacoby Brissett and Teddy Bridgewater in my pool and Derek Carr didn't come down because of the quarterback. It came down because, if I'm playing Albert O and I'm playing the Cowboys, like, why don't I play the Denver stack on the other side? Why don't I do Bridgewater plus Sutton plus Judy plus O plus, something like that with Zeke and Cooper as the run back? Okay. Derek Carr, Daniel Jones, even if you wanted to play like Daniel Jones plus Tony plus Engram and run it back with Renfro. I mean, because the skill position players are projected well and make sense. So just like these cheaper quarterbacks did not have like multiple guys in the game, and like even Brissett, like Waddle, Gaskin, Gesicki, and Parker not there seemed absolutely viable. Maybe you don't get more than 18 points at quarterback, possibly, but if Brissett does do well, the pieces that it goes with.
Right.
It's just that did Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Love, it just seemed like a stretch. Like Colt McCoy would have been one of those if you knew the Kyler news, before yesterday, and people would have been, Colt McCoying it up with Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore. But that makes more sense actually, because Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore actually projected well,
right?
The game
because there was no DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you looked
no AJ Green.
You looked at all of this, and the cheap quarterbacks that you wanted to use. There were reasons with the skill players. That's the point that we're trying to make. Like with Derek Carr, I had a Raiders stack because there was no Henry Ruggs, so it thins out the target tree. With Miami, the reason why both Jordan and I wanted to be on either Tua and he decided to go on Brissett is because there's no Devontae Parker. Like the skinnier target tree, we can make better assumptions about where those targets and where the workload is going to go.
Even Dak Prescott, like that, when you have Amari Cooper at 5,700 sitting there, like maybe you don't play Lamb, but you could play Cooper. Elliott was projected well. You could play Dalton Schultz in your tight end spot as leverage. It's like, and also you have to understand that the Cowboys had a 29.5 implied team total. The Raiders had a 25.5 implied team total. Even after the Tua news, Miami had a 26 implied team total. Josh Allen obviously had a 31 implied team total. Now, when you play Josh Allen lineups and Dak Prescott lineups, and both the teams combined don't even hit either one's implied team total, that's going to be a problem. But really, that's what it comes down to. I don't mind the cheap quarterbacks if you're able to bring highly projected players with them. But like Cooks was okay. Like Adams, for the high end, Adams was like the worst projected player in the high end. That's why he was only like 6% owned.
I thought that Devontae Adams was an interesting play in GPPs. If you want, and what I said in my article was, I think that Devontae Adams is going to be low enough that the risk outweighs the ownership, or that the ownership discount you get outweighs the risk of him doing badly. If you wanted to do a secondary stack with him and Tyreek Hill or him and Travis Kelce.
That's right.
At no point did I say stack with Jordan Love, because you didn't need to. You didn't need to take that risk. You didn't need to say that. It was so weird. It
would have been a much different decision if McCaffrey was at full strength.
Yeah.
And you knew he was going to get 95% of the snaps, and if the Rams were on the slate. Right? If Cooper Kupp's sitting there at 9,000 or 9,200, then we could start seeing it's like, okay, well, if I play Jordan Love, if I play Tyrod Taylor, if I do Tyrod Taylor, Brandon Cooks, and run that back with Myles Gaskin in that game, I could play Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp and Christian McCaffrey. Like, then you could start making some lineups.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like I don't think that, the construction, even just from the results. From the Sims, it didn't make sense either. But even just from the results, the pay down quarterback type of builds that was not the build to go.
No.
And I just want to comment on Jacob Calloway in the YouTube chat. Why the fascination with the ownership of individual players? We should be evaluating the ownership of our lineup archetype versus the field ownership of that archetype. That's absolutely right. But you have to start with the players.
And then combine them together.
And then combine them together. Right.
What we're trying to do here, Jacob, is we're trying to put together like we're trying to look at the individual ownerships and say, oh, well, this guy ended up being this highly owned. This guy ended up being this highly owned, and then work forward from that and say that built this kind of lineup construction from the field. And you needed to be able to do this, which is why Albert O was this highly owned. The questions that we have, the reason why we're asking this question of like, why were people trying to pay down at quarterback is because if people are paying down at quarterback, that's going to force it. They typically do it to build a specific way in roster construction. If you're paying down at quarterback, it's to be able to afford studs at running back and wide receiver, especially if you're able to pay down at tight end. So when we're looking at these individual ownerships, we're not looking at the individual ownership because we care about the player. We're looking at the individual ownership because we care about how that affected how people were building throughout the industry.
I would think that a lot of the Jordan Love type of lineups have Eckler, Elliott, and Kamara in it.
I would think so as well.
And Tyreek Hill to replace one of those, like 3 of those guys. Like that was that archetype.
Yeah.
If you wanted to pay over $7K for 2 running backs and a wide receiver, like you kind of needed that. So, but I mean, in taking a look at this, I mean, with Stephon Diggs coming in at 14%, 16% over compared on the contest. Like I'm not like the ownership of my Bill stacks. Like I'm not concerned about. I played Dan Arnold as a run back in some of those at tight end. He scored 10 points. He was 5% owned.
Yeah.
Like, is there a reason why Arnold is 5% owned and Albert O is 21% owned? No. I mean, he's a little bit more expensive, I guess.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thing with my Ravens stack is I knew that the Ravens were going to be like relatively popular. I knew that. I did not think that Lamar Jackson was going to be 25% owned, and I did not think Marquise Brown was going to be 38% owned. But I knew they were going to be popular. But that's why I needed to surround them with some lower owned pieces. I used Mark.
So who was in your Ravens lineup like that?
So my Ravens lineup was Lamar Jackson, Devontae Booker, Myles Gaskin, Marquise Brown, and Mark Andrews. Brought it back to Justin Jefferson. And then I used the Chiefs defense, which I didn't think was going to be as popular as it was. And I made a mistake on that. And I can acknowledge that that was a mistake. I did not want them at 29% owned. But then my secondary stack was Donovan Peoples-Jones and T. Higgins.
Okay,
and
you're good. That lineup,
I'm good right there.
What size contest is it? What are you playing?
That was Power Sweep. So what?
Power Sweep, the main Power Sweep?
Yeah, the main one.
The main one, 100K to first 3.
Yep.
That your lineup is good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And I
even under projecting the ownership. Did you play Eckler in that lineup?
No.
Did you play Elliott in that lineup?
No.
Okay, so Chiefs defense and for Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown to be coming way over that what you thought. The Chiefs coming in way over, but I knew the Chiefs was going to be popular.
I knew they were going to be popular. I didn't know they were going to be 30% owned.
Right, but it's mitigated, and Higgins was owned.
It was like 12% or something like
right.
that.
Booker and Gaskin were owned, but they weren't owned to the level of Eckler and Elliott.
Right, not even close.
And Donovan Peoples-Jones is 1% owned.
Yeah.
And when Landry is 18% owned.
Right. So and I knew, like, as I was building this, even, we just talked through all of the actual ownerships of these players, but looking at the actual leverage that I had with these players is important as well. Because I had leverage on Jarvis Landry with Donovan Peoples-Jones. I had leverage on all of the cheap tight ends with Mark Andrews. Right. I had leverage on Jamar Chase with T. Higgins. I had all of this different leverage built into this lineup.
But even without those leverage points, the total ownership of your lineup,
it was low enough.
Was higher than you thought it would be, but still lower enough stretch. By having no Eckler, let me go to the power. Let's go to the individual contest. So the Power Sweep 3 entry max 100K to first. Okay, it's 4,445 entries.
Yeah.
Did you cash in this?
I did. I took like 90th or something, I think.
What's your username again? It's
Multicom.
Yeah, multi. Okay.
126.
Right. Yeah, here we go. 158.94. So if we take a look at the ownership of the entire contest, Eckler was 35% owned and Elliott was 26% owned.
Yeah.
Now, probably you projected Eckler to be 25 and Elliott to be 22, something like that.
24 and 22.
Right. Okay. I'm good at projecting ownership.
You got this. Yeah.
Right. So you thought that by not playing Eckler, I'm dropping an Elliott. You're dropping a ton of ownership in your lineup that's going to be there. And Elliott came in 2 points higher than you projected. And Eckler came in 11 points higher than you projected.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to use this exercise because I think this is a very, you have your projected ownership in front of you.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe if you want to write down notes, we're gonna do a score of the projected versus actual.
Right.
Okay. So what did you? Okay, you had Lamar in your lineup. What did you project Lamar's ownership to be?
17%.
Okay, you projected 17. It came in at 25.
Yep.
Okay, so that's -8 for you, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you had Gaskin in your lineup. What did you project him owned?
15.
And he came in at 15. I'm just gonna take the first two numbers. So who cares about it?
Yeah, I had 14.77, but we'll
right. Yeah, just give me the first two numbers.
Yeah.
And you had Booker in the lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, what did you project him to be owned?
I had Booker at 14.
Okay, he came in at 16. So that you got a -2 there.
Darn it.
Then who else is in? You got Marquise Brown. What did you project him?
14.
14, and he came in at 32.
Freaking 2.
So that's a -18 there.
Oh no.
Okay. Then you got what? Higgins in your lineup?
Yeah, T. Higgins.
What did you project him?
I had him at 11.
Okay, he came in at 16. That's -5. Then you had Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm assuming you had him at 1. Or 2.
I had him at 1. Yep.
1. He came in at 2. You had -1 there. Then you had Andrews.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you have him at?
10.
Okay, he came in at 9. About the same, but you get +1 there. Who was your flex spot?
Flex was T. Higgins. It was.
So what's the next position player?
What are we missing here? Hold on. I have Lamar, Devontae Booker, Miles Gas, Justin Jefferson.
Oh, Justin Jefferson. Yeah, what did you have him at?
I had him at 7.
He came in at 11. -4, and then the Chiefs defense.
I didn't actually project ownership on Chiefs defense.
Okay, you didn't, but
no.
We'll ignore defense then.
Yeah.
Okay. So based on this, on your total ownership, but we don't include defenses because you don't project defenses.
Yeah.
You have -8, -2. That's 10.
Yeah.
-18, -28, -29, -30. So -39. So basically, your lineup came in 39 points higher than what you 39 in ownership.
Yeah.
Higher than what you expected. But now let's do this exercise. What did you have Eckler at? Projected.
23.
23 came in at 35. So you're going to gain 12 there. What did you have Zeke at?
22.
Okay, and he came in at 26. So you get 4 there. Albert O, what did you have him projected at?
I had him at 15.
Okay, and he came in at 26.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it for the power sweep. So that's
yeah.
I'm just looking at the numbers in comparison to the power sweep. Nick Chubb, what did you have him at?
Had him at 14.
14. He came in at 24.
Wild.
Okay, Tyreek Hill was not in your lineup.
24.
And he came in at 24. Hunter Renfrow was not in your line.
Go look for him really quick. 14.
Okay, and he came in at 21. Brandon Cooks.
That's 9.
9. He came in at 20.
Jesus
okay,
Christ.
So we got Eckler in a running back position. We got Elliott in a running back position. We got tight end Albert O. We got running back Nick Chubb. We got Tyreek Hill. Let's see. Running back. Tyreek Hill. Hunter Renfro. These are wide receivers. What did you have? Amari Cooper.
17.
Okay, came in at 18, so that's 1. Okay, so then after that, I'm not going to count Aaron Jones. Then it comes down to T. Higgins, Booker, Gaskin, guys that you had.
Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, I'm just taking the top chalkiest players that you didn't have.
Yep.
So we add those up, the top chalky players that you didn't have, compared to your own projected ownership.
Yeah.
12 plus 4 is 16 plus like that could be in your lineup. Okay, so that's why I only took like 2 running backs. If we take 2 of the running backs and a tight end and 2 of the wide receivers or something like that, like the top out of the bunch. So we get rid of the lowest 2, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to have a running back because obviously you have to take a tight end because you didn't play Albert O as the chalkiest tight end.
Right.
You didn't play the 2 chalkiest running backs.
Correct.
And you didn't play 2 of the 2 chalky. The second 2 chalkiest wide receivers. And the only reason you played the most chalkiest wide receiver is because you stacked them. Okay. So 12 plus 11 is 23, plus 10 is 33, plus 7 is 40, plus 11 is 51. Okay. So you're gaining 51 points in ownership that you didn't expect.
Right.
Even though you lost out on 39 that you did expect. So the differential there is you're still to actual, you're still 12 points ahead in ownership. If we just do it this very blunt way of like, so it's not just a matter of, oh my God, I played Lamar Jackson plus Marquise Brown. That was twice as owned as I thought it would be. Well, Eckler and all these other guys were more owned than you thought they were going to be also that you don't have.
Right.
And if they dud, you go up there anyway. So it's not just looking at, I mean, this is very similar to Jacob's type of thinking in terms of the archetype. What do these lineups kind of look like in general? And there actually was a way to build your lineup that was even like, imagine you played Albert O instead of Andrews, and instead of Donovan Peoples-Jones, you played Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Then all of us now your lineup is now compared to actual, you wouldn't have you didn't play Eckler who's 12 points high, like you wouldn't have made it up.
Right. Because I would have had so much from both of those guys.
Right.
That is a good exercise.
That. I mean, it's a blunt way of doing it. I mean, because you have to count all the ownership and everything.
We like blunt sometimes, though. It forces home the idea very, very well. I mean, there's a reason why you learn really basic math before you learn calculus. You know, like the blunt aspects of mathematics are still important. You have to understand where it's coming from. Right,
but to me, this is the best way to review of like, had I known, would I do anything different? Now, to you on an individual basis, like we're getting back to Jacob's point in the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, well, Marquise Brown was twice as owned as I thought he would be. I shouldn't have played him. No, well, look at your lineup. In your lineup, it was still fine.
Yeah.
If I would have told you beforehand that Marquise Brown and Lamar Jackson, if I only would have told you the Ravens ownership, that lineup was still good.
Yeah, I'm still playing it because I still know that I have Donovan Peoples-Jones and I still know that I have Mark Andrews.
Right.
And I'm fine.
Right. If I gave you the actual ownerships for yesterday before you built your lineups, that lineup is still good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Only because of the other pieces. Like that's the key point of if you took a look at if we took a look at some other Marquise Brown lineups in GPPs. I'm assuming a lot of people may have said, I'm going to play Marquise Brown, and I think he's going to be lower owned than Amari Cooper. And I'm going to play Nick Chubb because I think he's going to be lower owned than Zeke Elliott. Like, you'd be right that Nick Chubb was lower owned than Zeke Elliott, but you didn't really get that much of an ownership discount on.
Right.
And then you played Eckler with that lineup. And then next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, my lowest owned guy is Kadarius Toney at 13%.
Well, and this is also why you don't ever go into things and say, I'm not going to play this player because he's high owned. ever.
Right. It depends on the once you put in Jefferson and Andrews and DPJ.
Like, it doesn't matter at that point. I'm good.
Right. It doesn't matter. You're done. I mean, right.
Well, and apart from that, as soon as I didn't play Austin Eckler,
and
Ezekiel Elliott, and Albert O, like, I'm mostly fine.
Right. And even though you're playing the 29% owned DSD, which we all know objectively, chalk DSDs are not.
That one I saw, and if you'd have told me that the Chiefs would be that high owned, that is, I feel badly about that one.
So many defenses put up good scores today.
I know, and
except for the 49ers, who were the second most owned defense.
I actually my defenses sucked yesterday. The Chiefs put up 11. It was last week. I had two of my good defenses that were low owned. Like, they did well, and they were only like 2% owned. And then the one that was the highest owned defense that I had was terrible. I swear to God, like, if you can just take the highest owned defense out of your player pool, just do that every week. Every week. Just don't even play it.
For GPP, obviously.
For GPPs, yeah.
Right. But in your type of lineup, even with a 29% on defense, that was fine.
Still fine. Yeah.
Right, still fine. So it's it's lineups, not players.
Yep.
Can we go over everyone's favorite segment of the show during NFL?
Oh yeah, this one's fun.
Of the high projected guy that you have that I think you're absolutely nuts on. Yeah. Can I guess who it is?
Yeah, sure. You get 3 guesses. Go for it.
Okay, I get 3 guesses.
Yeah.
I have precursor. Did you have Kyler already projected out?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you have James Robinson already projected out?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So everyone that was projected out, you had projected.
Yep.
Okay, but that ended up being out. Wasn't the type of thing that 3 hours from now you switched up stuff.
No.
My first guess is going to be Rondell Moore.
No.
He's not the guy. Or him or Christian. Is it a Cardinal?
It is not a Cardinal. No.
Okay. Okay. That would be my first guess. Then let's see what my next guess of the completely overprojected guy that I think you're nuts. I don't know who would be that far. I mean, it may be someone towards the top that just did, like, I had highly projected in my aggregate. You just had him way higher.
No, it's not. It's not. It's somebody that you would have had projected for. I'm gonna guess like 8 points.
Oh, really? It's that.
Yeah, it's one of those this week.
A guy that I would have had projected for 8. What position? Wide receiver?
Wide receiver. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go down. I find this fun. I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna look my RGB and then go down to even lower. What? I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about like a 4K receiver.
Yeah.
Is it Brian Edwards?
No, I did like Brian Edwards, but it's not Brian Edwards.
Is it Brandon Ayuk?
It is not Brandon Ayuk. I wish that it was.
Am I hovering around the right spots? I mean, the people that I've mentioned is the person you're talking about is even less talented from a real life perspective.
Yeah, it is even less talented. Hold on.
Okay, now you have to tell me if is it Jamal Agnew?
No, I did like Jamal Agnew, but it is not Jamal Agnew.
Is it Nico Collins? I mean, I'm now
absolutely not. It's not Nico Collins.
Is it? Don't tell me it's Robbie Anderson.
No, I'm not Mike Leone. Sort by fantasy points really quick, and then go down to like to 10 and under, and we're just gonna see.
That's what I was looking at that.
Oh, yep, I see him. Nope, go down. Yeah,
it's on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell. Oh, is it Russell Gage?
No, you're highlighting him. It's Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Oh, Donovan Peoples. Oh, okay. It's the guy that you played. Oh, okay. So obviously, I should have went through logic that you actually you played.
Yeah, I would actually play the person who I have projected like God. I had him projected for 17.
Come on, you know that's wrong.
He scored 17.
Yeah, but come on, you know that projection is not. That's his ceiling projection, not his median.
It was the same thing as Quez Watkins. It was the same thing that happened with Quez Watkins, where like the ADOT and then the increase in usage because of like the player being gone on a team that I think is going to be like in a spot where they need to pass. It was all of those things. It was the exact same situation as Quez Watkins. And it just turned out to be Donovan Peoples-Jones this week. And he got tackled on the 2. So he almost had a 2 touchdown day where he puts up a Cortland Sutton score when you called me insane for that one too.
Yeah, I have him here in my aggregate at 7.36.
Yes, I see that. Yeah.
Right. So Donovan Peoples-Jones would get into like every at his ownership, he would end up being in like every lineup that I have.
Yeah, I had him at efficient ownership like 12%. Because like I did have his range was wide.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. For high variance play, I've no qualm on the playing Donovan Peoples-Jones in GPPs. Just
oh no, I know where your qualm lies. I get it.
Right,
and I did write in my article as well. It's like Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I even said it is the weird projection of the week. I've even incorporated this into my own content over at Pater. And I said he projects very, very well, but the reason why he projects well is because of a large ADOT, which comes with a lot of variance. So don't lock this guy, but I'm going to use him in one of my single entries. And then, if what I wanted to do originally, because when I build out my single entries, when I build out my 3 max, I identify the games that I want to have exposure to based on position players that project well and based on the quarterbacks that project well. So I knew that I wanted something with T. Higgins. So that means that I'm either going to do a secondary stack with him or Donovan Peoples-Jones. So that means I'm either going to do a secondary stack with him and T. Higgins, or I'm going to stack Cincinnati. And I'd have been fine stacking Cincinnati, but like the pieces just didn't fall together the way that I wanted them to. And there were other stacks that I liked a little bit more. And in order to afford the Ravens stack with Mark Andrews, I needed the salary savings of Donovan Peoples-Jones in that lineup. So in order to build that out, like Donovan Peoples-Jones only ended up in one lineup, even though I'd have been okay with stacking Cincinnati and bringing him back as well. But I needed his salary savings in that Ravens lineup. And if I wanted to build like a Bills lineup, I would have had to have him in that lineup in order to make it work. There would have been no other way to make that work. So that's just kind of how I build out those 3 stacks. And that's why when I write with things like Donovan Peoples-Jones or Quez Watkins, it's either going to be a part of the stack that I like, or it's going to be a secondary stack in one of my other really, really expensive stacks because I couldn't possibly do it without it.
I want to do this exercise now that we're talking about similar to before.
Yeah.
Okay. I locked in, if you see in my lineup HQ, based on my aggregate projections.
Yeah.
And RG ownership.
Okay.
I have your lineup from the power sweep.
Yeah.
Okay. Now for me,
yes,
it comes in at 131.22 as a median.
Cool.
With 127.5% ownership.
Mm-hmm.
This would not make this lineup would not make the cut in comparison to my lineups.
Sure.
But I'm not looking at these. I'm looking at these numbers, not at your numbers.
Right.
So, for instance, let's do the same exercise we did before.
Yep.
I want to do these exercises because this is something that people should be doing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, comparing to actual, now, because now we're not going to compare to actual. We're just going to compare between me and you.
Yeah.
Because remember, I look at this lineup and go, how do you play this lineup? It projects too low and it's too high owned. But to you, based on your numbers, and then if your numbers show that it's a viable lineup, then I understand why you played him. And then if we want to argue that my numbers are better than your numbers, that's a different story. But from a decision-making perspective, so Lamar Jackson, you had projected so what was your median projection for Lamar Jackson?
34.
Oh, what? Median?
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. Yeah. So just give me the first 2 numbers. So 34 is the first 2 numbers. Yeah. We're just going to say whatever the first. So you're +8 on me there. What's his ownership? Projected ownership?
17.
Okay. I have him at 15.9. So,
sure.
So you have him at a 2 points higher ownership. Mm-hmm. Gaskin, median, first 2 numbers.
Gaskin, I had 13.
Okay. I have him at 15. So I
had him at 15% ownership.
Okay. So you had him at a 13-point projection.
Yes.
Okay. So that's -2 to me. And what was his ownership that you had?
15%.
Okay. And I had him at 22. So that's -7. So we're doing a comparison to mine. Okay. I just want to make sure I do the pluses and minuses. Devontae Booker projection.
16.
Okay. So You're 1 point higher than me. And ownership.
14.
And you're 3 points lower than me. Marquise Brown. Projection.
Yeah. 15.5. So 15.
Okay, I'm -1 on that. And ownership, you had him at what, 14?
14. Yeah.
Yeah, and I am at 18. So +4 for me. Higgins, projection.
Higgins, 15.
Okay, same. And ownership,
11.
I had 12. +1 here. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
17.5.
17. So you're I'm -10.
Yeah.
Now you're okay. Yeah.
We
Now
both have him at 1% ownership. So
now I just have to make sure I get the pluses and minuses right.
yeah.
You're +8, you're +10, you're on Higgins, I just want to make sure you're +2 on ownership, you're -7, you're -3, you're +4, okay. You're Donovan Peoples-Jones, you probably have projected for what, 1%?
Yeah, 1%.
Yeah, so about the same.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Andrews, projection.
Andrews, 16.
Same. No, I've been at 13. So you're
Yeah.
+3. Ownership,
11.
I am at I had 13. So that's -2. Jefferson, projection.
16.
Same. And ownership.
7.
Okay, so you're at for a little bit higher. +3. And we're not going to do defenses since you don't project defenses.
Right.
Okay. So from my perspective, this lineup is 131 at 127.
Yeah.
127. But now if we add all the numbers of your projections differences and the ownership differences from that. So the projection difference would be +8 -2, which is 6, 7, 7, 6, +19 on me. And then the ownership difference would be 2, -5, -8, -7, -3, about -2. So yeah, you would your projection primarily because of Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit on Lamar, because that's 34 as a median. Your lineup, if I saw it on my screen with your projections, I would have it as a lineup with a 150 median at a 125% ownership.
Sounds
and
right.
It would pretty much beat all of my lineups.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's primarily geared by a horrible projection from a $4,400 player. But that's the reason why I said if I had Donovan Peoples-Jones at 17 median at 1% ownership, he would have made all my. I mean, like it would have been one of those things where I can't miss out on this. He would have ended up being in my 24 lineups, I would have had him in 20 of them. But also, I would have also realized that the projection is probably wrong if he's only 1% owned. Right?
Sure.
I mean, from a perspective of who's more likely to be crazy, me or everyone else in the world? It's probably everyone else in the world.
So, hold on. I'm building it up in my own builder here. Okay. So I had it as, after building out, I had it as a positive leverage of 6.5%.
Depending on how you calculate that. I mean, that can mean anything.
Right. So, but like, as I am like speaking towards that, the way that I build out the roster construction tool, what I tell subscribers to do is try to aim for something between 5 and 10% positive leverage on this roster construction tool. So it was positive there. The combined ownership was, significant.
It's obviously positive, but I mean, it's primarily geared that I think even if we say that your Jackson projection is off by 5.
Sure.
Even if we say your DPJ projection is probably off by let's just
20.
say maybe you project him at 11. So let's say by 6.
Sure.
So we drop this by 11 points and we still get to like 139 at 125. And you're still in range. You're still in a decent enough range.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably over projecting DPJ, but if you projected him for 9 and even you add formal, if you get this projection into the 135 to 137 range for the power sweep type of contest, I still think it's a playable. I think there are better. I still think there are better lineups than it, but I still think it's a playable, passable, possibly plus EV lineup.
Yeah,
even at that. But obviously, when you have a 17-point projected player for that, like all of the EV comes into that number being correct.
Sure. Yeah. And so if you were building out your lineups and you saw the same numbers, you would think that it would.
You would think that exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the point that we're making here.
Yeah.
This is how you review slates. Like Bob Bay says, your lineup only works because of your over projections. No different than if someone builds a bad lineup that wins. So let's take a look at the lineups in the other lineups in the power sweep. Well, without their numbers, how would we know what the hell's going on?
Right.
But that's the point. Like, you can only make the decisions that you can make. Right. I'm using an aggregate between Blitz, RG, and a bunch of projections around the industry, because that's what most people would be. If you sign up for RotoGrinders, you get our projections. You sign up for the Blitz, you can only make decisions based on that. So unless you're building your own model, right? Then like you build your own model, and then you make the lineup decisions from there without seeing what an opponent projected from a player and the projected owners from a player. I mean, there are plenty of times in NBA, especially if someone gives someone 4 extra minutes, that I take a look at a sharp player's line. Like, I look across the board on 20 different sharp players, and one player has this 3% owned guy in 68% of his lineups. And the guy only plays 16 minutes. I mean, and it wasn't even good. And the point is, how did that guy get 68% of that guy? It's like, well, it's most probably because he had him projected for 4 more minutes than everyone else, and he got jammed into the small forward spot in a bunch of lineups. Did that make him wrong? No, because there are plenty of times that one of them has a guy in 68% of the lineups, and the guy ends up playing 28 minutes, and you go, how did that guy know?
Like, I had a discussion yesterday with a subscriber in Discord about Bobby Portis, and because I had Bobby Portis projected for 22 minutes, and that was about industry standard.
Right. But the range on his minutes could have been like 18 to 20. I mean, it could have been way more or way less.
But the discussion, because I said, because I faded him because I didn't like what I was seeing when I looked into the game logs. And I faded him, and one of the subscribers was like, yeah, I have almost 100%. It's like, how did you have even if you liked him, even because he projected around 23 to 25 across the industry, even if you liked him at 22 minutes, I didn't understand how he had 100%. It was like, because he projected really well for me. I'm like, how many minutes do you have him projected for? I have him for 22. He said 28. I'm like,
okay, now you understand.
That's why. Okay. Yeah, of course you're going to have 100% now, because he projects for 32 or 33.
But the big difference, I want to stress it again. What we said right there with the Bobby Portis thing. There's a difference between arguing and debating a projection,
right,
and then debating a decision,
right,
that you make based off of information. So if you're someone that builds projections and builds and says, I think this guy is going to play X minutes, I think he's going to have this usage, then we could have all the discussion we want about I'd put Portis at 28. You would Portis at 22. Why? Well, based on these rotations, and now we're talking basketball, but I don't focus on basketball. I'm focusing on the people that know basketball already have all those numbers. They're giving them to me. Right. People that know NFL are already giving it to me. Now, James, you're one of those people.
Yes.
Now, when you're wrong on a projection, in Donovan Peoples-Jones, which is highly over projected.
Yes.
You're not looking, you're not looking at the rest of the field going, wow, these people are stupid. You're just saying, like maybe he shouldn't be 17, but he's my flag plant. I'm going to take advantage of a recent trend and hope I'm right type of plays. If you had to choose between a whole bunch of, if you want to take dart, you're like, I want a dart throw in my lineup. Landry's going to be owned. I'm going to play DPJ as leverage. You could have said the same thing for Tyler Boyd, for crying out loud. You could have said the same thing for Nico Collins as leverage off of Brandon Cooks. You just happen to choose DPJ. But the most important factor is not whether or not the projection is right, is accurate, or is anything like that. Were the decisions that you were making consistent with the information that you were looking at? Because that's all anyone can do. So in the instance with Bobby Portis, if your buddy had Bobby Portis for 28 minutes and decided to fade him because he thought he would be chalky, like that would be the incorrect decision, because at a 28-minute projection, he should probably have gotten into like almost every lineup that you make.
Right.
But at 22 minutes, he wouldn't. The decision is more, at 22 minutes, Bobby Portis may actually be overowned. And at 28 minutes, Bobby Portis is massively underowned, even though he's going to be chalky. He should be 80% owned at that point. But those are the only things that you could what you could control is the decisions that you make.
Right.
So unless we want to sit here and argue about projections, which I find boring, especially since I don't make my own.
Right.
All I could do is go, hey, around the entire industry of smart people, they didn't have Donovan Peoples-Jones that highly projected. And you could agree with that and say, I'm playing him as if that's okay, whatever. But it's not like you were building that lineup going, like, if you had him projected for 18% ownership because you think that everyone has a 17-point projection for him, that would be wrong, right? Like that, to me, that's the wrong thing to focus on. Projections, they're subjective. I mean, I think that's crazy to have that type of projection on him, but to have a discussion about that how does that help anyone?
Right.
That doesn't.
And what is more prescient, I think, and you and I won't have these discussions because you hate talking about how projections are built. But if Derek Carty and I were to have this discussion of like, why did Derek Carty project him for 8 fantasy points and I projected for 17? I could point to my baselines and I could say he's done this. He has this market share. He has this for his expectation. He has this for why I think that they are going to be doing this much passing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We could have had that discussion. And then at that point, you can talk about how projections are built. But saying that using a projection source builds a bad lineup, bad is subjective to the projection source. So if you think like, it's just rehashing the same point that Blender just made. But if you see a different projection source, you won't ever make the same projection or the same decisions that I will using a different projection source.
Right. And that's why it's tough to just look at a specific individual lineup and go, well, what were they thinking here? Because most of the top players aren't putting in lineups as, I'm going to play this guy and then I'm going to play that guy. They're building lineups based on some type of mathematical method.
Right.
So it's like they're not even looking to put in guys one at a time and go, well, they thought this and they thought that. Like, dude, there are plenty of times sharp players, including myself, play 150 lineups and am under on a lot of the over-owned plays, and the one, and I win $50,000 on a lineup where I only have 2 of a guy. Right? It's like, oh, what did you see in that guy? No, actually, he just ended up in that one. I mean, like, it's one of I always go back to the Garrett Temple thing. It's like, what did you see in Garrett Temple when he puts up 47 points for 3,400? I go, nothing. He filled a small forward spot, and I was playing a bunch of lineups, and I was playing the 2 guys from the other side of the game. So okay, then he was better than Jetty Osman or whoever else in that range. So like, to me, there's no point in going over that. I'm more likely to go over sets of lineups, portfolios of lineups, because I have to think that if we take a look at a contest like let me get to NFL. If we look at the contest like the Millie or something, like if I go to the, I'm less likely to look at, let's take a look at the top lineup. What do I care? I want to look at the sets of lineups that good players have made. Right. So I'm going to look down. I'm going to find someone that, that I recognize or whatever. I'm going to see, let's see, Dark Mana look or something. Okay, I can see that. So I look at Dark Mana looks lineups, and it's like, okay, what did he do? So I look at the quarterbacks, and it's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Basically, no Love, no Taylor, no Brissett. So what does this tell me? Based on his lineup constructions, he was paying up at he wasn't paying for the cheap quarterbacks. Right. So I could look at that. Right. So I look at running back. Without seeing the whole lineup, this isn't going to do you any good. But just to see, is there anything that he's dramatically above or below the field, which could identify one of two things. Either on their end, with their information, they had them lower projected or higher owned. So it's going to be one of the two. So if I take a look and I see, like, he had Chase Edmonds he had 18% Chase Edmonds, which is more in line with kind of where I was going with it, right? Only 0.3. So most likely he had him, Chase Edmonds, for a higher projection than the field had him and had lower ownership, which is very similar to how I had it, right? So I look at that and go, okay, I got look through there, and then I look through wide receivers. Rondell Moore, 26%. Now, some of this could be late swap stuff, right, to take advantage of the Kyler news. But at Renfro, Cooper, Diggs, Beasley, right? Marquise Brown. He was under on Marquise Brown.
Yep.
Even though he had 11% Lamar, but I have to assume, based on rational decision, that probably he didn't have Marquise Brown higher projected, and he had him higher owned. He had a more Kadarius Toney, but an 11% owned Kadarius Toney is much different than an 18% owned Kadarius Toney. So, like, looking through this, I could see those types of things: construction types, projection versus ownership types. Right? I take a look at this and I go, okay, Andrews he had more of. Right, Tommy Sweeney in his Josh Allen stacks, because why should Tommy Sweeney be 3% owned when Albert O is going to be 14% owned? So you could look through stuff like this, and that's just for Dark Mana look. If I go to like all these 150 entry players and pick out a bunch that I look at all the time, right? Look at Royal Payne, right? He had a ton of Patrick Mahomes. Probably had Patrick Mahomes for his projection at 5% owned, probably worthwhile to play. CeeDee Lamb at 4% owned. Now, obviously, Royal Payne probably did not do very well, right? Right? But that's not. But you see the point of, like, I'm not looking for the best lineups.
Right.
I'm looking for the best players. I want to study the sharp players, no matter where they.
I would always do the same thing, and I would always go look at Utica. I'd look at Brandon Adams. I would look at McLovin. And I would look at E. Hafner. And those were like the four that I would usually look at.
So I'm looking across the board right here. So I got Dark Manilook, Royal Payne, Utica, and Corfield, E. Hafner. I'm just like going on field ownership here for the Millie. Look at Royal Payne, 2% on Eckler.
Yeah.
So he used that primarily as a leverage point, like Cooks, barely any. But yeah, E. Hafner, like, take a look at this. E. Hafner has almost half his lineups with Brandon Cooks and Mike Gesicki.
Yep.
Which means he found that game to be under-owned, or it was a mistake. It's quite possible you talk to E. Hafner and he goes, I was playing Brandon Cooks because I had him projected 5% owned. Right? Yep. He came in at 21, and then the cards flip up and he looks and he goes, whoops.
Yeah, he looks like,
right? Because that happens all the time. Right? You look up and you go, whoops. I had a different number, because why would you get 47% of Brandon Cooks? Either because you had him higher projected or you had him projected lower owned.
Yep.
So that's all I'm doing is comparing that to that and the construction types. So Royal Payne had almost none of the Dolphins game, and E. Hafner had all of the Dolphins game. And my concern is not, did they think the Dolphins game was good? Like that, I don't care about that. I care about, how did they get to this decision? Because these are rational, sharp players. So either Royal Payne had that game projected much lower especially when Tua got ruled out.
Right.
So maybe Royal Payne said, Tua's out, I'm lowering my projections, and I think the field is going to be over. I think the field isn't going to adjust for it and still act as if Tua's in. So ends up being under. Maybe E. Hafner thinks the complete opposite thing. Goes, with 2 out, the projections don't change much.
Or they
Actually,
go up.
maybe they go up, and the ownership may start coming down because people don't want to play with. Like, it's the complete opposite of what one person thinks. That how the field is going to react dramatically changes how much they play of a player and what types of lineups they have. So to say one is right and one is wrong that's not what you're looking for. You're looking, how did these players think? How did they get to their decisions? And it's much easier to see that on a 150 lineup basis because they're building a lot more lineups. So you can see what more types of lineups are they building.
You can study their portfolio.
Right. But one is wrong. To say one is right and one is wrong, if we just looked at the top lineups, if I just take a look at top corner, the top 150 max player in the Millie, and I looked at this lineup, he left 1,100 on the table, had Herbert plus Allen, and no Philadelphia run back, had Cook, Singletary, Marcus Brown is a one-off, Waddle, Arnold and Singletary was kind of a secondary stack, and James Conner is a one-off, and the Giants defense. Like, you take a look at this lineup and go, what do I learn from? I don't know. This lineup was exposures. Right. I can look at right. If I top corner, like now, look at this lineup, I don't know what this means. Like, I don't like. How did you get on this? Like, I don't know. This could be the only lineup he has Keenan Allen in. Who knows? So let's say I'm going to go to top corner now. Okay. Toggle full screen. Let me get rid of these. Probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
I was going to click on all. Okay. That I thought that was going to take forever. Top corner. Right. So I take a look at this. Get rid of dark mana look. Okay. Go by field exposure. Look, Marquise Brown was only in 7% of his lineups. Right? Kamara, Chubb. Like, what was it? What was in that winning line? James Conner. 3% of lineups. 3%. He had a lot of Edmonds, I believe. Right. Yeah, like 38% Edmonds.
That Conner was just a hedge. It was just a hedge.
It was just a hedge, or he swapped, or just like after the Lakers said, I'm going to switch some of these to Connor. Who else was it? Let's take a look back. Devin Singletary, right? So we have Devin Singletary here. Let's take a look at Singletary. 6% of line.
Okay. What about
Moss 18% of line, right? Like, he was big on that game. I mean, it was just a matter of the game. If we take a look at his own, like Edmonds, 38% Edmonds. So out of 150 lineups, he killed most of them because, like, Gaskin, Chubb, Elliott, Eckler, Kamara, he was rotating a lot of running backs.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it looks like. Ayuk, 22%. Look, he had Ayuk, he had Moore, Renfro, Devonta Smith. He had plenty of Devonta Smith that just ended up not being in that line.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though that was a charge. So, like, if you looked at this lineup and you said, wow, he played a naked single Herbert Allen with he decided to do no run backs with his Chargers. But that wouldn't be true. Most of his Chargers stacks had run backs because he had Devonta Smith in a quarter of his lineups. Just so happened that Jalen Waddle was in this lineup instead of Devonta Smith. Right?
Yeah.
The Giants defense instead of the Chiefs defense, right? So this is the reason why I don't like studying individual lineups, because, like, this without the context of the entire portfolio, it doesn't mean anything, right? Baseball, it's like, what made you decide to play a Pittsburgh 5-man stack? It's like, I didn't. I have only had 2 of them, right? Because I'm playing 16 stacks, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll play 2-5. Like, if it shows up, it shows up type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it fits the lineup constraint of projection versus ownership. So I'm taking the account out of it of, like, well, what do I think of this player? I don't think anything. All I know is I have numbers and I'm piecing the numbers together. So as long as I'm making good decisions based on the numbers that I have, that's the only thing that I can control. James, you're making decisions based on the numbers you have. And that's the only thing you can control. Anyone that's watching and listening, you can only make the best decisions for the numbers that you have. Now, if you subscribe to RotoGrinders, which you can click on the link and get $10 off your first month, like I know the numbers you're looking at. So if you tell me that you don't have your own projections and you're like, I subscribe to X, Y, and Z and something, and can you take a look at my lineups and tell me if they're good for this contest? I'm able to do that because I know what you're looking at. I go, based on these numbers, why'd you play this guy? I don't know. It's like, well, because these lineups are projected way too low and they're too high owned for this contest. It's like, well, I don't know how I got to the. It's like, well, you did something wrong. Some of these lineups are good. Some of these lineups probably minus EV. Only because I know the information to look at. If I looked at your lineups, if you built 150 and I saw you had 88% Donovan Peoples-Jones, I'd be like, James screwed up somewhere.
Yeah.
Based on what I'm looking at. But once you tell me you have a 17-point projection for him, I say two things. One, you should probably look into that. Right. And number two, I can't judge you for the decision because if I had a 17-point player at 4,400 at 1% owned, he would have been in 88% of my lines.
Really quick. I know that you don't like talking about projections, but really quick, what do you think that Donovan Peoples-Jones, hold on. I got to spell.
Did you have the pace of the game higher? Did you have the play rate in that game higher, pass rate higher?
Hold on.
I mean, you had to have so many things higher to get 10 more points as a median outcome.
Yeah, I'll tell you here in a sec. I got to load back up the one that I had for game day. Yeah, that one. Enable, restore. Okay. So all right. So
can you just explain to me how you get to 17 points for DPJ?
Yeah. So
it has to be you have to have his target share higher. You have to have the pass rate higher. You have to have everything higher.
I had his target share at 17% for Cleveland.
How many passes did you have for Cleveland yesterday?
I had him projected for 17%. He ended up with 16%. So his ADOT
on 21 passes. That's
but his ADOT, and I don't think that I had I don't actually think that I had their passes that high. When I look at
how many plays did you have projected in that game?
I had Cleveland for 35 pass plays. So I had it over. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's still not that high.
No, it's not that high.
I'm just trying to figure out how you get to a 17-point median.
I'm trying to tell you if you'd stop talking for a second.
Okay, but you're giving me stuff that makes it even worse.
Right, but what I'm telling you is that if I had him for 16% of the market share, the only thing I can do is project that for 35% of the passes and an ADOT of like 19. And that's why. If he catches 4 passes at 19 yards, that's 80 yards.
Yeah, that's 12 points.
That's how. Right.
That's 12, but that's 12. That's not 17.
Plus, he has some of the touchdown equity.
Right, so plus 300 on a touchdown line. I think I think that's poor process, though.
That's fair. That is fair.
Okay. At least you'd say that's fair. Okay, that's fine. Okay, at least I understand that. You just said how many pass plays, how many target share, and then you multiply it by the ADOT and just assume that that's his average of. But you have to know that the higher ADOT passes are less catchable. So how many?
I have that in there too.
Okay, and also the reason that the higher ADOT passes are also most volatile, as far as it could be 36 yards or it could be nothing. It could be
right.
If there's less,
I have his touch rate in there too, and I have
Baker
Mayfield's completion percentage in there too. I have everything in there. I promise.
I just don't see how you get to that. Get to 7.
I know. Okay. That's why it's the weird one of the week. That's why we like this segment.
But it's always one person. It's never like It's never like you say, oh, well, I had DPJ at 17 and I had Rondell Moore at 22 or something.
And that is why when we have these discussions, I'm not self-conscious about my projections, because when we go through the other projections, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then there's one that is wild. So if one is wild, I'm not going to change the entire rest of the projection set. I'm just going to let that one be and say, oh, well, that's the weird one this week. And then like tell people, well, this is the weird one this week. Don't go crazy on it. But if it says this, then take a shot.
Right. But you have to admit, you're looking at that going that.
I do. And every week I'm like, all right, this is the guy.
Right. We're not arguing. Right. Some people in the chat are arguing as if like you're trying to justify it. It's like, no, I know how it got there. And I don't even agree with it. But it's the only one out of 400 players that I'm projecting. All the other players are projecting within a range that at least is somewhat reasonable within other people's models.
Right.
And this is one that stands out. So it's very similar when people like we'll say in our Discord, like this projection is wrong. It's like, well, that's wrong, then everything is wrong. So you can't say that one guy's projection is right and another guy's projection is wrong. It's either the model is good or the model is bad. And so occasionally you'll get outliers, and you can redact from there.
If we're looking at it and we have these discussions where it's like, okay, well, 97% of the players are within an acceptable range, and then we have these weird guys, it's like, I'm fine with 97%. That's really, really good. So
then you have to decide whether or not to take a shot on the outliers or not. But sometimes the outliers are in the other direction. Everyone's projecting some guy to be really good, and you have him for like 6 points.
Yes.
You go, I don't know why everyone has him for 12.
Yeah. And then I'll end up fading him, and then Bobby Portis splits up 45 fantasy points.
Okay. People can get your stuff paydirtdfs.com.
Yeah. paydirtdfs.com. And then paydirt_DFS on Twitter if you'd like to berate me for the Donovan Peoples-Jones projection. And yeah, esports, like League of Legends just finished up, but Counter-Strike is still going, and League of Legends will be back in about a month and a half. So come get the esports projections too.
Okay. Bob Bass, feel free to not watch the show if you don't understand how to review lineups. You can feel free to learn most of this stuff. theoryofdfs.com/masterclass. You go get the 15-hour audio DFS masterclass, theoryofdfs.com. Because Bob, let's talk about how Landry only got 4.7 points. What's the point of that? All you have to do is review your decisions. Okay. So like I said, you're more than free. If you don't get, there's thousands of people that get everything out of this show. And if you don't, you're more than likely to hit the thumbs down button and just don't show up.
And life is hard. Yeah.
Right. Because I think the exercises that we went through, I think it's more likely that we do more of that.
Yeah.
On a week-to-week basis.
Yeah.
Because all you can do, I'll repeat it again, the information you have and you build lineups from it. There's nothing that I could talk about that has anything to do with football. Okay? You make money off of mathematics. So you have math, and people, I've had people, James, send me their lineups that do just that. Say, I built 150 lineups, and I'm consistently losing. And first off, I say you're going to lose 95% of the time, so that's normal. And they say, I use X projections, I use X ownership, and I'm not doing well. I'm losing 90% of my money every night. And it's like, that's weird. Like, you shouldn't be losing 90%. Like, a losing night you should still get plenty of minus 15%, like whatever. And then they send me, and I go, next slate. Send me your CSV of the 150 lineups that you played. And I take a look at these lineups and I go, and they I use these projections. And I go, I don't understand how you got to these. Like, I just dude, these are all there's all these lineups are 25 points lower projected than anything else that I even played in large field GPPs. And I'm like, why do you have 87% of the eighth guy on this team that was projected for 18 points for 3,100? And it's like, well, he was and you go through and you go, well, you have to explain to me how you got to this, because I don't even understand. It's like, no, I compared projection and ownership, and he had the highest number for whatever. So I just jammed him into 88% of my line. Like why? There was 17 players in that range that, if you wanted to do that and play a couple of $3,100 players, you could do it. But if he sent me those lineups and he didn't tell me where he got information from, how I can't judge. I could just say, why'd you play that guy for 3,100? And most people don't even understand why they did or didn't, and they say, well, they projected. Well, and how do I refute that other than say, well, according to my projections, he projected for just nothing, for 15 to 18 points. Like in NBA, that's not going to cut it. And they go, well, they seem to project. Well, I can't help anyone from there. So that's why the information that you have, we're getting past that. That's the point of the review. Because we could spend 8 hours, James, going over why'd you have Tyreek Hill at X and why did I had him? And I can't explain why, because I don't make the projections. So there's no point. All I could do is make the decisions based on the information that I have. So I just want to highlight that. There's a little extra long show since I'm going to be gone for the next 3 days. But I just don't understand how that James, the exercises we did from the beginning, comparing the lineups and comparing the ownerships of just your one lineup, like it cashed, it didn't do well. It had an overprojected guy in there. But even if you took out his overprojection, I still think it was fine. It was fine. The only criticism I had was if you take out the overprojection, I think there were better lineups you could have played, but I don't think this was a bad one.
Yeah, and I think that like the player that you could have plugged in there would have been Hunter Renfrow for the industry.
Right.
And he would have made that lineup make sense across the board.
Yes. Right. Well, at 50K, you'd have to find salaries somewhere. So no, what I would have done is to basically put Gaskin down to Edmonds.
Yep.
And then Peoples-Jones up to Renfrow. And then that would have been a kind of a lineup that I would have built if I was playing Raven stacks. But that's the difference, a 2v2 but the thing is that my lineup it's not like my lineup's good, your lineup's bad.
They're both
my
good.
lineup's better. I think my lineup's better, but your lineup's still good. Yeah. Right? And then we could get, obviously you can make 1,000 lineups like that. Absolutely. Okay. Paydirt_DFS on Twitter. I'm Blender HD on Twitter, as always. Like I said, programming note. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's no DFS pregame show. I'm going on vacation for the next 3 days. So you won't find a YouTube video for it. Please don't DM me asking, no show today, whatever. Like if you watch everything, you should know that. There's none. I've said it in the beginning. I've said it at the end. There's no show until Friday. And we'll be back to talk more NFL, I guess NBA then. People like the MMA stuff, I guess, for casual Friday. So for James McCool, Jordan Cooper, as always, answering your DFS strategy.